Hey everybody, welcome back to 10 minutes of scratch art. And let me get the focus going. As you can see, we're working on our Blackfoot Indian teepee. And where we left off last time was, you saw me kind of time-lapse work, doing time-lapse work on it. As you can see, I've established a couple things. First of all, let's look at this. The Blackfoot Indian teepee had four main lodge poles to hold up the teepee. Very different from other Plains Indian teepees. So it was the four main, and then it was really up to the individual as far as how many lodge poles he or she wanted to put in to build the teepee. Usually it was the women that would set up the teepee. So since these were nomadic tribes, it would really depend on just what kind of traveling power they had with their travel. Horse, dog would be made to carry these lodge poles. It wasn't like they would go out into the woods and cut lodge poles. So just an interesting thing to note when you're working on trying to do something with a little bit of authenticity, you got to research basic things like that. Now, part of my research is going into period photos that I've referenced several times, and you have to look at those too, because that's basically our testimony from the past. Written word is very good too, but nothing beats a photo from the period. You can tell already that I've established where my moonlight is coming from. So somewhere here, we're going to have a moon. Stark shadow, light, shadow. So we know where things are going. I have just enough of the moon-tipped grass here. This will really, I'm kind of playing with this here. Obviously, this would be much darker, but I have to kind of play with reality a little bit for the eye of the person looking at this. And that's something that a lot of artists do. Next time you look at a painting or a picture, accuracy was something that really was introduced with photography. Up to that point, it was up to the artist to kind of tell you what reality looked like. Think about that. Pretty cool. With this, we are certainly creating an evening on the northern plains. So here's that skin flap. This teepee, I'm really going with the idea that it would be made of buffalo hide. Buffalo hide, it would take several hides to make a teepee. And I think I'm going to show you a picture at this point, give you an indication. By the way, it's about 7 degrees outside Fahrenheit. Big cold day here in Chicago. So it's kind of an odd sensation working on this glass. It's like working on a chunk of ice. But you can see here already, What are we doing here in the scratch art? Stippling, stippling, stippling. I'm making dots, 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 dots. Very little scratch. You know, scratch here along the border. Scratch here. Hard definition. If you really, you want to kind of avoid that as much as you can until you're really certain that you want to make that commitment. So I'm dotting, 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 dotting. Why? Because it gives you much more detail. Much more detail. So the moon's hitting that. You see, I don't want to play with that too much. Now that's pretty bright. I'm going to leave it a little dark under that flap. That makes sense. Here comes that moonlight. Leaving some room for the shadow to pick up this lodgepole here, this defining lodgepole. See, that would make sense. A little sag in the hide. I have to ask myself if I'm going to, with this, go to the extent where I'm going to show where the hide is. Right now, I'm probably where the hides are sewn together, okay? Right now, I probably won't. I just think that might be a bit too confusing. Most contemporary teepees are made of canvas. Even in the time that these photos were taken, by that point, tribes were using canvas. Loss of the bison herds, of course, had a lot to do with it, but also the convenience, you know. Canvas was easier to roll up and move around. You can hear a little bit of a background. My daughter's watching Son of Svengoolie. Well, it's kind of a little tradition on a Saturday. If you're from Chicago, any kid from Chicago, at one point or another, you watched the horror movies from the 1950s and 60s on Svengoolie, with always a reference to Berwyn, Illinois. Berwyn! That's where Svengoolie was from. So if you're hearing some screaming in the background, that's because I think today shows the attack of the giant spider. Pretty lame, but fun. Drive-in movie stuff. A lot of people ask me, well, what do you do if you make a mistake? When you make a mistake, you turn it into an opportunity with scratch art. I've had some horrendous mistakes that have been made. One time I had an X-Acto slip, and I ended up actually slicing right through the emulsion, the plastic, and I had a nice tear. I had a rip on this piece of art called Arctic Dancer. And what was I to do? I mean, I spent hours working on this thing. I couldn't just, I had to take it and turn it into something. And so what I did is I cut even more out and I introduced colored gels, theater gels. And that's one exciting thing you can do with this stuff is you can get some basic color in. I could take, you know, some red theater gel, maybe orange, combination of the two. I could, you know, bring it on this side of the film, the side that's attached to the window right now, and with sunlight coming through it, it would give this kind of evening glow, you know. Look at how nice that's going. So there's a lot of things you can do to play around with this. You have to be patient. You have to be very, there's my timer. It's amazing how fast 10 minutes flies. You have to be patient with this stuff, okay? And as you can see, you know, I mean, I've been taking my time doing this piece. So much detail. You're layering detail, layering detail, layering detail. I haven't gotten to the external area yet, but you know, I'm probably going to introduce a ridge line here. So there's a little bit of, for the eye, there'll be grass, a little more grass here. Definitely more definition needs to come in here so you can look at that flap of that teepee and feel like, wow, here we go, you know. So just, those are the things I want you to think about as you work along on this piece. Or you work on your own piece, you work along with me on this piece as you're observing. Just remember, in this kind of stark black and white kind of stuff, you really want to focus on where you think your light source is going to be. If you have like 16 different areas that look like light sources, it's eventually going to confuse the eye. You can get away with little. Like I said, I'm going to get away with this to some degree, you know. It's going to be, because once I bring in a little more roughage, grass, and stuff like that, that's going to kind of fade into the background. Necessary for me to start somewhere, and so I started with my border to kind of give me an idea of, oh, well, there's where I am. You know, that's where the base of the teepee is. In hindsight, I could even have dropped it down maybe another inch. So I'm going to have to put some stuff in here to capture the eye, fill out this painting. You know, in that one photo, there's a bison skull. So I'll probably work on putting in like a bison skull here. Let it play with the light of the moon, something in the foreground so that you look at it, you see the grass, you see this teepee. It'll be fun. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll be doing another one soon. Take care. Bye-bye.